The village was small, lost to time, forgotten. Surrounded by hills, it huddled against the edge of a forest. The Whispering Woods, they called it, a name uttered with fear, with a shudder. The villagers kept their distance. They knew the stories. The woods were old, ancient, trees stood tall, gnarled branches clawing at the sky. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, leaving the forest floor in perpetual twilight. Paths were swallowed by the undergrowth. The air was always still, heavy. Those who dared to enter spoke of whispers, faint at first, carried on the wind, then louder, closer, whispering names, beckoning, luring people deeper into the woods, never to be seen again. The villagers warned outsiders. Stay away from the woods, they'd say, especially at night. But some warnings are meant to be broken. Eliza arrived in the late afternoon, a young woman, her eyes bright with curiosity. She had heard the stories. Of course, who hadn't? But Eliza was drawn to the unknown. Mysteries whispered to her soul. She stood at the edge of the village, gazing towards the dark line of trees. A shiver ran down her spine. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. And something else, something faint, almost inaudible. A whisper? Eliza shook her head, dismissing it as her imagination. The villagers were superstitious, that's all. There had to be a logical explanation. She would find it. She would be the one to unravel the secrets of the Whispering Woods. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Shadows stretched, reaching out from the forest like grasping claws. Eliza felt a thrill of excitement mixed with a sliver of unease. Night was falling. Her adventure was about to begin. Eliza had traveled far, her journey fueled by whispered rumors and faded maps. The village was smaller than she imagined, almost deserted. The few villagers she encountered avoided her gaze, their faces etched with fear. She rented a room in the only inn, a rickety building with creaking floorboards and dusty windows. The innkeeper, a woman with eyes as old as the forest itself, warned her about the woods. "Don't go out there, child," she croaked, "especially not at night." Eliza smiled politely, her mind already made up. She unpacked her bag, revealing a notebook, a compass, and a worn copy of local legends. The whispers, the disappearances, the strange occurrences, they fascinated her. As darkness descended, Eliza found herself drawn to the window. The forest loomed, a black silhouette against the star-dusted sky. A strange sense of anticipation, of dread, settled upon her. The whispers, she realized, were growing louder. Ignoring the innkeeper's warnings, Eliza stepped out into the night. The air was cool and still, heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. The moon, a sliver in the sky, cast long, eerie shadows. She reached the edge of the forest, hesitated. The darkness beneath the trees seemed to pulsate, alive. Taking a deep breath, she plunged into the woods. The path, barely visible, wound its way through the trees. Branches brushed against her like skeletal fingers reaching out to pull her in. The further she walked, the darker it became. The moon was completely obscured by the thick canopy. Then she heard them. Whispers, faint at first, carried on the wind. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Eliza stopped, her heart pounding in her chest. She strained to make out the words, but they remained tantalizingly out of reach. Section 5. The Forest Unveiled. As Eliza ventured deeper, the woods seemed to close in around her. The path, barely discernible now, twisted and turned, leading her further and further into the heart of the unknown. The moonlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy above, casting eerie, dancing shadows that played tricks on her eyes. The air, once cool and refreshing, grew thick and heavy, laden with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. It clung to her like a shroud, suffocating her, amplifying the sense of unease that gnawed at her insides. The silence, broken only by the rustling of unseen creatures, was unnerving. She pressed on, her curiosity battling with a growing sense of dread. The whispers, she realized, were growing stronger, more insistent. They seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves, from the rustling leaves, from the shadows that danced at the edge of her vision. They were calling to her, beckoning her deeper into the darkness. Section 6. Whispers in the darkness. Eliza stopped, her breath catching in her throat. The whispers, no longer faint and distant, were close now, swirling around her like a vortex of disembodied voices. They were clear, distinct, and filled with an unnerving urgency. "Eliza!" they hissed, her name a sibilant murmur on the air. "Eliza, come closer!" She spun around, trying to locate the source of the voices, but the forest remained an impenetrable wall of darkness. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, their tone shifting from seductive whispers to chilling commands. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her curiosity. Eliza realized with a sickening certainty that she had made a terrible mistake. This was no mere legend, no superstitious tale. The whispering woods were alive and they were hungry. Section 7. A Name in the Wind. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, weaving a tapestry of fear around Eliza. They spoke of forgotten things, of ancient secrets, of unspeakable horrors that lay buried beneath the heart of the woods. And always her name, repeated endlessly, like a morbid incantation. "Eliza, we know your secrets," they hissed. "Eliza, we know your fears. Eliza, join us in the darkness." Panic welled up inside her, threatening to consume her. She had to get out, had to escape the suffocating darkness that pressed in on all sides, but the path, obscured by shadows and her own mounting terror, was nowhere to be found. She was lost, trapped in a labyrinth of whispering trees and unseen eyes. Eliza stumbled blindly through the undergrowth, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The whispers followed her, mocking her fear, urging her deeper into the heart of the woods. The whispers seemed to be everywhere, surrounding her, closing in. Fear lent speed to her steps, turning her flight into a desperate scramble through the undergrowth. She tripped, falling heavily against the damp earth. Looking back, she could see nothing but the oppressive darkness, hear nothing but the relentless whispers. But she could feel it. A presence, cold and unseen, watching her, toying with her. Eliza scrambled to her feet, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had to get out, had to escape this nightmare. She ran blindly, her clothes torn by thorns, her skin scratched by low-hanging branches. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly before her, a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. She didn't know how long she ran, how long she stumbled through the darkness, driven by pure, primal terror. She burst out of the tree line, gasping for air, her lungs burning. The moon, now high in the sky, cast a cold, pale light on the familiar surroundings of the village she had escaped. Collapsing onto the cobblestone street, Eliza looked back at the dark, imposing silhouette of the whispering woods. The whispers were gone, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow more unnerving. Villagers, drawn by her cries, gathered around her, their faces a mixture of curiosity and fear. They helped her to her feet, their eyes wide with a mixture of pity and apprehension. Eliza tried to explain what she had seen, what she had heard, but the words caught in her throat. How could she possibly explain the terror, the sheer otherworldly dread she had experienced in the heart of those woods? Eliza left the village the next morning. She couldn't stay, not after what she had experienced. The villagers, though sympathetic, avoided her gaze, their fear palpable. She had become an outsider, a living reminder of the darkness that lurked at their doorstep. She traveled far, trying to outrun the memory of that night. But the whispers followed her, faint at first, a distant echo in the quiet moments, then louder, more insistent, weaving their way into her dreams, her waking thoughts. Eliza tried to ignore them, to convince herself that it was all in her mind. But deep down, she knew the truth. The whispering woods had claimed a part of her that night, a part she could never reclaim. The whispers were a constant companion, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the world and within herself. They taunted her, mocked her, called to her, and slowly, insidiously, they began to lure her back. Years passed. Eliza tried to build a new life, to forget the horrors she had witnessed. But the whispers persisted, a constant siren song, pulling at her, drawing her back towards the village, towards the whispering woods. One cool autumn evening, she found herself at the edge of the village. The years had not dimmed the fear in the villagers' eyes, nor had they lessened the oppressive presence of the woods. They loomed as dark and menacing as ever, a silent invitation and a chilling promise. Eliza knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she could not resist the call any longer. The whispers had grown stronger, more insistent, and she realized that they would never cease until she returned to the place where it had all begun. With a final, lingering glance at the village, Eliza turned towards the dark, beckoning embrace of the whispering woods. She did not look back. She walked into the darkness, her silhouette swallowed by the shadows, and disappeared. The whispers welcomed her back into the fold.